Hi Prashant, welcome to Speakeasy with Dheeraj Sinha. Great to have you on the show.
Hey, Dheeraj, likewise. Looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing, amazing. So listen, Prashant, I was going through the whole story, and what piqued my interest first is that how does it feel, right, from being outside a large network, building your own brand, Soulful, etc., and now coming and becoming part of a large conglomerate like Tata. So I want to first start with how does that transition feel, the good, bad, and the ugly of it.
Yeah. So no, I think I'll just summarize it very, very simply. Grateful, right? And when I say grateful,
Yeah,
grateful for very many things. One is I think it's a big validation, and as entrepreneurs, you make large,
yeah,
risky bets, if you will. Um,
yeah.
we have always been a very purpose-driven brand. We believe that brands have to have purpose, and like I
Yeah,
say, I believe brands are immortal human beings, right? So if
nice.
brands have to be immortal human beings, it needs to go on beyond
Yeah,
just, let's say, the founders, the co-founders, and the original team. And to me, to be with the Tatas, right, and the brand now being Tata Soulful,
yeah,
I'm grateful for the simple fact that this is the path of the immortal human being, of the brand to stay.
yeah,
And to me, I
yeah.
think from there, it's just a brilliant, brilliant piece. I think it's a marriage that's really made, I don't want to jinx it, but in heaven,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we are getting the entrepreneurial nature of the brand, the
yeah,
value system of what I think all of us across India and even outside of India now cherish of the Tata brand, and how do we
yeah.
actually then take this and get the brands into what I always call the belly of India, and more out of not just the top four, five, six cities of where you are seated, where I am seated, but
Yeah.
really into the belly of India. And I think to me, just grateful for that. And as an entrepreneur, I'm committed to ensure that this becomes a success. And I think that's what is key for us.
Amazing, amazing. And so, moving on to the business and the space that you are in, Prashant, right? I mean, health is kind of heating up in a big way in India, right? Post pandemic and so on and so forth. And all of us are relooking at our behaviors, our food that we eat, everything, all of that. I want to understand from you how widespread or how deep is that? Do you see this as a surface? I watched a few reels and I made a few changes. Now I have turmeric in milk. Is that the level it is at? Or is it going deeper? Is it going deeper in terms of town class, middle India, and so on and so forth? What's really going on from your perspective?
That's a great question, Dheeraj. Great question. And I think, so first, let me, I'm known to bust myths, so I'm going to start busting some myths,
Amazing, love
right
that.
from
Yeah,
go, right? I think we all think of health and wellness, and we think about all of that. It's right. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
right? But let me first address the health and wellness part, right? I think the whole piece, right, on health and wellness, definitely COVID has speed jumped, has made us all take a second and pause. But like all realities of catastrophic events, those memories fade, right? Those memories fade very quickly.
absolutely.
I mean, there was a time
Like
when everyone
office
talked
work,
about,
right? Work from,
yeah, work from home, there's that. Suddenly, everyone's
yeah,
like, COVID may. It suddenly feels
yeah,
like was a decade ago, right? What was merely a
yeah,
few months ago.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
but the part that I want to really so definitely that has had its health and wellness, it's had all of that. We've realized that vaccines can only take care of us for so much. We need to take care of the food. One part that COVID has done, and I will relate this to telecom, an industry I've always watched with a lot of closeness. Right, telecom also we had the jump. Right, we didn't do the
yeah,
classic landline. We went straight into
yeah. To the
mobile.
leapfrog, yeah.
Right, and we leapfrogged. And I think what that has done is it has definitely done a leapfrog from a health and wellness perspective. However, the part that I want to bust is Food is genuinely supposed to be about nourishment.
Yeah.
That is what your grandmother told you, your mom or told you, or your
Absolutely.
dad told you, right? That's what my grandparents told me, right? I call them Pati, Tata, whatever, right? Whatever you
Yeah.
may call them, food was about nourishment, which is why we ate
Yeah.
dal khichdi, we ate sambar, right? We ate
Yeah.
all of that. It was always about nourishment. And I
Yeah.
think India has the ability to not have to follow the Western world in what
Mm.
has happened on packaged foods. I believe if we stay rooted to course of purpose of what food really means, and we can stay
Yeah.
core to nourishment as being one of the major and more important pieces that is there.
Yeah.
And that is why for us, I think that becomes a difference. And hence I said I want to bust that myth because for that person, and I go back to the core, and if I have to say of the belly of India, he or she has worked so hard to get
Yeah.
50, 100 rupees of disposable income on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Brands such as us have to work 4 times harder to ensure that we don't provide junk back for his or her
Yeah.
hard earned 50 rupees, but provide strong nourishment options because he or she is got a very, very limited pool, right? And how do we then ensure that? Because he's not really thinking about health and wellness. He's not thinking about all of
Yeah.
that. So I'm hungry. I'm genuinely
Yeah.
hungry. My kid at home is
Yeah.
genuinely hungry. My wife is
Yeah.
genuinely needing those food items back home. And I think that becomes very, very core and important. So I would not look at health and wellness from that particular piece, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, so very, very interesting. I mean, going a bit deeper into because it's a topic of fascination for me as well.
Please.
So, I mean, I've done a lot of work in this space as well. I helped ITC launch the juice category. I also before that I worked on Ashirvad, the Atta. Ashirvad was in fact the name in the brief itself, and that became the brand. So I have keen interest in food, and I feel that food in India is cultural, right? I mean, it has character. It is tamasic, sattvic, right? It is auspicious. It is, and there's a whole joy and celebration around food. So you cannot understand the idea of food in India in an objective way, minus the cultural connections that it comes with. But help me understand a bit more. I mean, for example, I see my own plate now, and we are going back to ragi, and we are going back to moong dal chila, and we are cutting down on carbs. It's almost like going back to what my parents always said, but I defied, right? So are you looking at India from a, you said nourishment, are you looking at India from a nutrition point of view in terms of how do we at a large scale make sure that we move the country to a more nutritious, more healthier eating behaviors and habits, and what are the insights or what are the strategies that is emanating from that thinking?
So, A, I'm very glad that ragi and jowar and all of that is popping back on your plate, which I think is great, right? I think the two real important, there's few important parts, not just two. So I think
Yeah,
what you said rightfully, India, like, and you've been there, you've seen brands across, forget food, even in personal care. I think we are a
yeah,
country of many Indias, right? And I think it's very, very
yeah,
important for us to understand what works in each zone, state, town,
yeah,
even if you will, and how
yeah,
do you really break
absolutely,
this thing?
yeah,
The
yeah,
minute we start
yeah,
saying it's one size fits all, I think that's where failure starts. Right? And so let's take some things very, very simplistically. And I mean, before we get into why millets and all of that, but I'll just use this simple example again of millets, right? What ragi means to a person in Karnataka and what ragi means to somebody in Tamil Nadu, very different. What
amazing,
nachni,
yeah,
which is the same as
yeah,
ragi in
yeah,
Maharashtra,
yeah,
has a very
absolutely,
different
yeah,
connotation.
yeah,
You move further west towards the north, bajra roti and a jowar roti start
yeah,
having a different feel and different
yeah,
pieces.
yeah,
How do you bring this back in? And you move to the east, you move to Orissa,
yeah,
and they start calling ragi or nachni mandia, right?
yeah,
If somebody had to name the same thing in
yeah,
different ways, then he or she
yeah,
has a different connection. And I think it's very
Yes.
important for us to peel those connections and be able to
Yes.
say, what is it that you are offering to that consumer
Yeah.
back in his or her own area? Because this is
Yeah.
not Karnataka ka ragi, it is Orissa ka mandia. It is
Mm.
Maharashtra ka nachni.
Nice.
And how do you
Yeah.
then actually start looking at that? And the minute you
Yeah.
start changing that, I think
Yeah.
then it starts moving. All right. Obviously,
Yeah.
there are pieces in terms of communication, there are all of that. But I think that's where the real connection really starts coming to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. No, amazing. I want to probe this a bit more because this is very interesting, Prashant, right? Because food is about core in India, right? Center of plate, right? And
Yeah.
core doesn't change so easily. In fact, I did a study where I understood that most of the changes have happened at the periphery. They haven't happened at the dinner or the lunch plate, but they've happened in the snack moments, right? Say Maggie has happened in the snack moment. So we've kind of welcomed influences at the periphery, but the core in India has to be intact, right? It has to be dal roti, chawal, because we feel that's where the sanskar kind of gets
Correct.
transferred, right? So how are you navigating the equation between tradition and modernity? I mean, how much of tradition to leverage in your
Yeah.
business and marketing, and how much of modernity to leverage in terms of formats, presentation, recipes, all of that. How are you navigating that equation?
Yeah. So very, very interesting one. And let me also tell you, as we are very, very clear and focused about reviving millets, we are
Yeah.
extremely clear that we are not here to replace rice, wheat, or corn. If we go down that path, I think we would have done a big, big mistake, a big injustice to the country. And I don't think that's a path we will go down, right? Because everything, like you rightly say, has a place on the plate. And what our journey is about reviving these grains, which used to be a part of the plate, and bringing them back into today's plate. It has skipped a generation, so
Yeah.
that transition is going to be slightly tougher, which means a child of today, which is, I'm saying, the young India or the future of India, really has not seen his or her mom, dad actually consuming millets. But it is
Yes.
the grandmother, grandfather who has seen the consumption and has actually seen what would I say, the large decline of these grains. So that's point number one. So, given that fact of that matter on the table, to assume that in a generation you will make it to the center of the plate, I think is a very far-fetched one. That layered with the second part, which is, and this is again not just the case of urban India, but is the case of Bharat, if I may, the number of meal occasions are significantly increasing,
Yeah.
right? And which is why, like you said, in the snacking and all of those, because these
Yeah.
are large new consumption occasions which
Yeah.
really didn't exist as much,
Yeah. So there's no
right?
traditional
And
mental model to that.
absolutely. I think, and to keep the core of the sanskar, the food, to be a part of home, which is the breakfast, lunch and dinner more so, dinner
Yeah.
more so, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
especially as we move into a nuclear, and I'm trying to not look at India today, right? If we have to look at
Yeah.
India 20, 30 years out, right? We will
Yeah.
move further and further down this path. We will move
Yeah.
further and further. It will take time for it to really come into the belly of India for dual income household. And I'm saying
Yeah.
reaching to 10 lakh population, 15 lakh population, 5 lakh,
Yeah.
as we call it, right? The TLPs and
Yes.
all of
Yeah.
those, right?
Yeah.
It will take that time, but it will move there, right? These
Yeah.
occasions will only increase. And how do you, over the course of one next full generation, focus on a simple piece of how do you make millets relevant for those consumers?
Yeah.
I think that has got to be the core. And I'm again stating, So one of the things that we always say, right, as much as it's about millets, the way we look at it is how do we make millets relevant to the 21st century consumer, right? That is on most of my slides that I opened with, right? What is Tata Soulful?
Nice. Yeah.
Making millets relevant to the 21st consumer, right? It doesn't just
Yeah.
mean we'll make jo bhi product banao or leke jao. That doesn't, then the purpose
Yeah.
is not solved, right? So, so,
Yeah.
so that's the
Yeah.
core and
Yeah.
that's the thinking and the philosophy.
Nice. And so how are you approaching this, Prashant? Right? Are you saying that okay, let me target say biscuit occasions and replace this, or let me target Maggie occasions and replace this, or are you saying I will take a share of nourishment and nutrition, that there's a certain gap in the nutrition palette, and therefore I will target that. What's really the approach, or all of it?
Yeah. So I wish it was all of it. I mean, if it's like this, right? If you try to do all of it, none of them will succeed. So I like to
Right.
pick my
Yes.
battles, if you will, and be
Yeah.
clear and focused. I think what really we focus on is what we call the mini meals occasion, right? And when we talk about
Right.
mini meals, what does mini meals mean, right? Mini meals is essentially all other occasions that are classic lunch and dinner. All right. And how do we then focus on various mini meal occasions? We look at
Yeah.
very, very clear intention spaces, right? Mom-child
Yeah.
interaction, right? Very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting, large
Yeah.
dynamics. And trust me, we've done enough and more of this study. It doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
change from the highest level
Yeah.
of income to the lowest level.
Yeah.
It does not change.
Yeah.
Mom wants A, child wants C. They both are trying to find where is the midpoint, right? And that tension exists at every level of the
Yeah.
world, right? So there is that, and among various consumption occasions, and that pattern also changes from age of 5 to 20, right? If you will
Yeah.
just say, and I guess with respect to August 15th, right? There is the status of
Yeah.
independence that the child really gets, right? Of what is that really arching independence where mother starts losing control and child starts taking control of his or
Yeah.
her own life. If you are able to get
Yeah.
the analogy I'm making,
Yeah.
right? And there are a
Yeah.
various many sets of occasions that are there. And so we look at each of those consumption occasions through and through. So it could be a going to school moment, it could be a coming back from school
Yeah.
moment, it could be in the school moment, it could be in the bus moment,
Yeah.
in the commute moment, and
Yeah.
there are various moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
I prefer to come from like the classic old school marketing of day in the life of the consumer versus what I call see today
Nice. Yeah.
classic, I would just say, market research oriented category approach, because a category
Yeah.
approach
Yeah.
makes you do, हाँ ये इतना market size है इसका इतना share लेंगे, right?
Yeah.
In a place where you are really trying to define blue oceans, if you come category
Yeah.
towards consumer, I don't think you'll ever find a blue ocean, right?
Yeah.
The
And you're already
reason to
bound
win, the
by
right to win.
the given.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you're already
Yeah.
thinking in a realm. You're like a horse with the reins on, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the minute you start looking at it from this way, you start seeing opportunities. You challenge status quo,
Yeah.
right? Newer brands
Yeah.
like us, our job is to challenge status quo. What is status quo?
Yeah.
Status quo is somebody has been doing something great, it's successful, it's growing. But by the way, the world has changed. Uh,
Yeah.
Dynamics have moved. Maybe he or she is blindsided. Look at that
Yeah.
blindsidedness, find the opportunity, go after it.
Yeah, yeah, nice, amazing. The other dichotomy in India, I've traditionally discovered, Prashant, is the whole equation between taste and health, right? And long time back, the Marico Safola example, where they optimized for health and not taste, and did not succeed in the first
Yeah.
session, right? So Ajay, who used to run Capital Foods, once told me that भारतीय कहीं भी चला जाए, राइट, बट जब तक उसको मिर्च का स्वाद नहीं आता है, उसको खाने में तृप्ति नहीं होती है, राइट. So for India, right, I mean, healthy is fine, but it has to be tasty, right? We
Yeah.
will not subtract taste for the sake of health, right? How are you navigating that? I mean, are you actively thinking about it? What's going on that front?
There's no actively thinking. I think it's safest to embrace the reality and the truth. And I'll give
Yeah,
you two pieces, right? Two
yeah,
pieces on this. So one is I used to work in the US, right? In the US,
yeah,
You could say gluten free, low carb,
Yeah.
etc. And
Yeah.
people will
Yeah.
compromise on taste, right? And they're
Yeah.
fine with it.
Yeah.
And it's not compromise
Yeah.
on taste. I think it's
Yeah.
also the lack of the whole masala, the salt,
Yeah.
the tanginess. They
Yeah.
don't have that in their palate, right? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me as an Indian, I say, boss, you're compromising on taste. But his or
Yeah.
her definition of taste is also slightly different.
Yeah. It's aligned.
When
Yeah.
you come, yeah, it's a lie. When you come to India, I cannot agree more. See, at the end of the day, it's food. What is the
Yeah.
difference between food and medicine? Taste,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We are
Correct.
in the
Yeah.
business of food. We're not in the business of medicine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the first thing, right? In my mind, I'm very, very
Correct.
clear, right? If you're in the business of medicine, it's fine. We'll make ragi, bala
Yeah.
pills, 100
Yeah.
mg calcium, jobi, right? Then you're in a pharmaceutical business, right?
Yeah.
We're not in a
Yeah.
pharmaceutical business. We're in the business of food. So that's the first thing. And at Soulful, we're very, very clear, right? We go by this one mantra, which is taste first and health forward.
Amazing. I like
Taste
that.
first
Yeah.
and health
Taste for
forward.
and health forward.
And
Amazing.
health
Yeah.
forward, right? And when you look at that,
Nice.
it basically tells you how
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah. It's
approach product
fantastic.
development,
It's
right? And that's a
fantastic. Yeah.
very, very clear. If you
Yeah.
look at some of the products, right, and every single product that we have launched, right, there is nowhere that you will ever hear a consumer saying, taste acha nahi tha, right? That's not something he or she may not like a variant, right? Be it
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
ragi
That's fine.
bites,
Yeah.
we have a chocolate,
Yeah.
vanilla, strawberry, right? We play a lot or dial around a lot on sugar levels, salt levels, fat levels. We bring them totally down. We don't have maida in any of our kids' range of products,
Yeah.
right? We don't
Yeah.
add maida. It's the easiest thing for me to do,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
don't. But that does not
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
the child will say, oh, इसमें मैदा नहीं है, तो no problem. Mummy diya, so I will eat it. Nah, that child is
Yeah.
thinking of all other stuff. He's saying, oh, uska
Yeah.
lunch box में ये, इसका snack box में ये है. He or she is thinking about all the other brands and companies that are there.
Yeah.
Why should that child be penalized for his or her mom's
Yeah.
decision? Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Right? And that we are very, very clear on.
Amazing.
Second,
Yeah.
even if we look at the adults range of our portfolio, right? How do you get, so we have a masala oats, right? If you taste the masala oats plus, right? The consumers love the masala, they are the kick. If you taste our tomato flavor, for example, it's got a massive top note of spice, right? Because we like that.
Nice.
I mean, there
Yeah.
is the,
Yeah. Yeah.
plain
Yeah. Yeah.
Jane tomato, and then there is the kick wala tomato. We were very
Yeah.
clear. We took 8 months. We said, नहीं वो kick वाला मेरे को चाहिए. बिना kick
Yeah.
वाला मेरे को नहीं करना है, right? And how do you
Yeah.
do that? And it becomes very important to put it and ingrain it right at the core of product development,
Yeah.
research,
Yeah.
all of those pieces, right? So today we
Yeah.
are we are exploring some flavors, right? And we're looking at some flavors that we believe that there are things that children like, but they're not stating it, they've not seen it, right? They've not really felt it. But how do you then start bringing, from some
Yeah.
other category, as we call it,
Yeah.
some inspiration and bring them in?
Yeah.
Maybe some will work,
Yeah.
maybe some will not work. But I
Sure.
think the concept of compromising on taste is a
Yeah.
complete no-no.
Yeah. Yeah. And how has this been? Because you are trying to get a behavior change done, right? And food is the hardest behavior to change. So how's it going so far? I mean, what are the challenges you're seeing, or what are the wins that you've already got?
Yeah. So I think that you're absolutely right, right? Because when it comes to food, and the minute you say health, right, you say,
Yeah.
"अरे यार cardboard है, खराब है वो taste."
Correct.
Then
Yeah.
you add millets, अरे यार brown color, dark color.
Yeah.
I mean, with due
Yeah.
respect, we gained our independence, but our love for the color white is still very high, right? So we like everything white, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so what does that mean for a brand? So what that means for a brand is essentially the core of letting the consumer know that, hey, I got your back. I
Yeah.
understand that you are doubting me. Can I deliver the taste? Can I deliver? हाँ वो back of pack से ingredient healthy, better for you. All that I'm getting, but यार taste अच्छा
Yeah.
होगा कि नहीं? Because don't
Yeah.
forget, he or she has worked hard for that same 50, $100 that we spoke about,
Yeah.
right?
Correct. Yeah.
Now, he or she is going to say, boss, why should I go here? नया वाला
Yeah.
चीज इसका
Yeah.
मेरे को पता है. I know, tried,
Correct.
tested.
Yes. Yeah.
Why should I fail at my cost? right?
Yeah,
Why should
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
fail, right? I'm
yeah.
not willing to experiment classic early adopter,
Yes,
the graph, da
absolutely.
da
Yeah,
da
yeah,
da,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if you just go down to human science, forget all this early adopter, the graph, all of that. It's a basic thing, na? I have 50, $100. You want to sell something to me? I don't know. I don't believe you. I don't buy you.
Absolutely.
Sampling, and being at the core of activation has been one of the core pillars for us as Soulfull. Right from get-go, that has been a mantra we have been insanely clear about. We continue
And
to be
that's worked
clear
for
about.
you.
We will, and it has worked. It has worked. Now, obviously, I mean, you and me have also been sampled a lot of things on airplanes where you're like, oh,
Yeah,
thank you for making me taste them. I'm never going to buy this again, right? You don't want to
yeah,
be in that
yeah,
bracket, if you will. So,
yeah.
which means if you're confident about your product, right? If you're
Yes.
confident about
Yeah,
that, sample
yeah.
to color, sample and get people to be convinced that, hey, this is worth
Amazing.
a piece of pie
Yeah,
of that 50, 100 rupees that you struggle to work for.
yeah, yeah,
And stay
yeah.
honest to that particular piece. Don't compromise on quality.
Amazing. So, Prashant, I want to switch gears a bit, and so obviously India's had many traditional brands, right? I mean, we know a Parley and a Britannia, and all the food companies, right? Uh, and now across categories, including in food, now we have new age brands coming in. And in many categories, New Age has succeeded significantly. I mean,
Yeah.
at our end, we've in fact helped build some of them. We helped build Amazon, Spotify, PhonePe, Ola, and so on and so forth. Uh, how are you navigating that part? Being a new age brand, trying to build new behaviors, new category. You have some support of a traditional name such as Tata now, so that I'm sure is helping. But how are you navigating the whole building a new age brand and finding quick success? Because finally, it's also about getting some early gains, right? I mean, we're all running a business, and nobody's waiting
Yeah.
to give you the leverage that 5 years later you will deliver goods to the shareholders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's again, uh, and I also come from a very hardcore distribution, retail
Yeah,
background. I
yeah,
don't come from the classic marketing background, if you will. And the hard-earned way that, my dad has taught me, and, I've gone selling into stores and collecting the money, the outstanding
yeah,
bills, as you call it, deliver value to the consumer, be relevant to the consumer, and you will succeed. Be irrelevant to the consumer, and you will be irrelevant. And I think keeping things as simple as that sometimes can just do wonders. If you see our front of pack, you will never see a cluttered soulful pack. We will stand very, very clearly. This is Tata Soulful. This is the product range. These are one, two, three things we deliver. Right? The architecture, Dheeraj, just to give you a sense, has been drawn up 5, 7 years ago. Right? We have thought about how is this brand going to look, even at a massive, massive scale. Right?
nice. Yeah,
They're brutal. They're brutal about this. And I have no qualms of being brutal internally because at
yeah,
the end of the
absolutely.
day, I'm being very honest to that same consumer who has worked hard
Yeah,
to get 50, 100
yeah,
rupees of disposable income per month. And
yeah,
if you are
yeah,
true and honest to that, I believe very strongly you will be able to build strong brands. You look at various opportunities, look at bench of stuff, and I think, see, the key part, what new age brands really do, what I was saying earlier, is you are working on a world which is very dynamic. Brands that have been there are just growing and may not adapt and see some of the
yeah,
changes from this
absolutely.
dynamics.
Yeah,
And that's the
yeah,
game.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
examples you
Yeah,
spoke about, Spotify, the way
yeah,
music is listened to, the way music is heard.
yeah,
PhonePe, the way money was transacted, right? I mean, today, and just on a side note, right? A very interesting conversation I have, and I always pick this up in various cities, right? Whenever you're on
yeah,
the red light, there's a guy who comes in. He's like quickly
yeah,
transacting, and I love it. He's got the PhonePe. I mean, he's got
yeah,
the
absolutely.
UPI.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got
QR
that,
code.
right?
Yeah,
So I asked him.
yeah,
So I asked him a question, right? I keep asking just to reassure myself that I'm not making a He says, sir, the beauty of this, but I said, boss, but now it's recorded. Government will know how much,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
making. Does it concern you? He said, sir, wo sab chodiye. I'm able to close way more transactions at a traffic
absolutely.
light signal today rather than
Yeah,
lose the change, lose all of that. And the
absolutely.
interesting thing is I'm able to make a transaction. There are a lot of customers by then they've not paid me. But you know what? More often than not, by the time they've reached the next signal, mera paisa aa gaya. Right?
Amazing.
So even if they
Amazing.
and I think that's a great change. I mean,
Yeah,
you think of this
absolutely.
person who's not really educated and all of that and how they
Yeah,
adapt. Now, who would have
yeah,
thought people would have said, "Nee, usko hard cash chahiye." I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
who was thinking about the hard
yeah,
cash, right, versus this?
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
how you challenge status quo, I think becomes very, very
yeah,
important. And
yeah,
there will be some key things that will happen that will change stuff, right?
yeah.
So one of the things that I read a lot on is curriculum, right? What are
Hmm.
children being taught, right? Because that
Hmm.
has changed.
Nice. Interesting.
If that
Yes.
has changed, then something
Yeah.
has changed, right? Something
Of
has to
course.
change,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
like forces of Newton, right?
Yeah.
There's a push and pull to everything, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm
If
not
there's
saying we will
energy,
get
it will
everything
land up
correct.
somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the thing. So, for example, Meda, today the
Yeah.
children know. They are aware.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
beauty is, I
It's
don't
being
think
taught.
I was taught when I was a child. No.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
in their mind, with Meda, but they say, oof, all the good stuff I like has Meda.
Yeah.
Now, how is this going to taste? So, how
Yeah.
does the brand
Yeah.
then really work through this, right?
Yeah.
So, which means the
Yeah.
child is aware, but are
Yeah.
you going to generate the trial? Because perception is not going to be in the right place. So, then how
Yeah.
do I work on various pieces to constantly up this game on perception? कि बिना
Yeah.
मैदा भी अच्छा हो सकता है, right?
Absolutely.
बिना मैदा
Absolutely.
भी I
Absolutely.
will be able
Yeah.
to give you
Yeah.
a damn good
Yeah.
product. All our
Yeah.
communication is dialed on this little angle.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, in fact, all my learnings, in fact, in selling new behaviors or change is that in India, change happens from grounds of familiarity, right? So when we sold Amazon, we sold it like आपकी अपनी दुकान. That's like your neighborhood store.
Correct.
When we sold phone pay, we sold it like it's everywhere. Everybody can use it. Any amount, anybody uses. So you have to lower the barriers rather than say you say this is change. People say no, I don't want to change. You say same
Yeah.
as what you're doing, but better. They say yeah, I want to look at it. So in India, new always happens from the grounds of comfort and familiarity. You know,
Absolutely.
and if
Absolutely.
you which you're doing, you're talking about taste and you're talking about mother child and all of that, and you're already bringing the change from the realms of familiarity and what we are used to. In terms of marketing, Prashant, how marketing and also business, right? I mean, how much is e-commerce and how much is offline? How are you looking at channels there? I mean, between digital and physical.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time. Again, if you would have seen, a lot of my focus is looking at very basic things. Yeah? Very, very basic things. What's happening today? E-commerce and D2C put together is close to 20 odd percent of our overall business,
But that's
growing
pretty
significantly.
significant.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
significant. Growing significantly. My offline business is also growing significantly. I think these borders of e-commerce and what we call general trade, modern
D2.
trade,
Yeah,
is going
yeah.
to get murkier and murkier
Yes.
to the dislikes of all of us, right?
Yeah,
The so-called learned community, if you will,
yeah,
or marketing gurus, if you will. But I
yeah,
think it boils down to the simple thing, right? Everyone's got a mobile, everyone's got data access, everyone's got the
yeah,
cheapest possible, lowest data access, right?
yeah,
So if I walk into a store, I am going to price check. Why will I not? 50, 100
yeah,
rupees, I struggle to win it.
yeah,
मैं तो check ही करूंगा, right? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
imagine a दुकानदार come and say, नहीं आप price check नहीं कर पाओ. He'll be like, I'm out of your store, buddy.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's my
yeah,
money. Who are you to tell me I
yeah,
can use my phone to do price check? Right? There was a
yeah,
point in time where, grocers were not allowing you to do price checks as a
yeah,
consumer.
yeah,
Today, the consumers have
yeah.
overruled. This is okay. You don't like
And the
it, I'm out
mobile
of
phone,
Dheeraj
the
store.
mobile, it all started with the mobile phone game.
Correct. It all started with the mobile
Yeah,
phone. So I think the way I see this, so to me, I think there are multiple pieces. But at the same time, one needs to also understand the categories that you play in. And I think category dynamics starts. When I say category, again, the consumption occasion. I've just left school. थोड़ा
Yeah.
पॉकेट चेंज है, मेरे को इधर से उधर
Yeah.
जाना है, बस स्टॉप से
Yeah.
उतर रहा हूँ, इधर से आई एम गोइंग टू वॉक पास दोस बेकरी शॉप्स, दोस चाय वाला दुकान, आई एम गोइंग टू वॉक पास माय फेवरेट डिपार्टमेंट स्टोर, I have a little bit pocket change that mama has given me, right? I'm going to do something with that money,
Yeah.
right? So there is a
Yeah.
consumption occasion. Is he or
Yeah.
she going to order on the phone at that particular point? Doubtful.
No, you want it then.
Once he
Yeah.
or she
Yeah.
goes home, yeah, once he or she goes
Yeah.
home, let's assume the
Yeah.
mom is at home or they
Yeah.
meet the mom and dad in the evening, they'll say, you know
Yeah.
what, my friend told me this. Papa,
Yeah.
mama, can I have your phone? I want to see on Flipkart, yeah, Amazon, yeah, Big Basket.
Yeah.
Right? So suddenly the same child who made a small transaction in a store is going home and making a transaction on the phone and adding to the cart. Right? So suddenly you
Yeah.
start seeing. Now I think what becomes very important is for brands and all of us to know it's that same child who went to a Panwala ya GT
Yeah.
classic bakery shop,
Yeah.
but also transacted on
Yeah.
your brand, Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
same
Absolutely.
child.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, which means look, feel, experience, touch, feel, brand language, everything has to be the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
immortal human
Absolutely.
being cannot change
Yeah,
if that gives you a sense.
absolutely. No, yeah, no, absolutely. Very, very interesting. And in marketing, Prashant, I don't know how much of
Yeah.
marketing do you actively get into, but how are you navigating that between traditional media, online media, influencer marketing? How are you navigating that piece in your mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I say marketing guru and all that, I mean, this my core is obviously in the marketing DNA and that side of things. I just try to break things down so that people don't
No,
get what I
absolutely.
say
You have to. I mean,
into
I have,
boxes.
I have. Yeah, I have a filter called. I tell people that we're all triple filtered MBAs, right? And we are paid to create the work that we do. Consumer is not paid to look at this work. So please always
Correct.
have that filter
Correct.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely agree. So I think the way we look at marketing, I think multiple pieces. Again, I'm going to go back to if you remember the telecom days, and I'm sure Dheeraj, you've
yeah,
seen the prepaid, postpaid SIM card,
yeah,
you've
yeah,
seen that whole
yeah,
ARPU game, etc. Right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
boils down to the same thing: customer acquisition, customer retention. Right? Two very, very very, very core things. So as
Yeah.
much and as we call in the funnel, right? We've got to keep acquiring consumers. A, because
Yeah,
you're a new brand, we have
yeah,
barely touched the country. We've barely touched the
yeah,
top box, if you will. So you have to constantly have the piece in terms of getting the set of the consumers. So for that, there is a set of tasks, there is an activity, there is all of those that we need to do. And then there is the piece in terms of stop the leaky bucket, right?
yeah,
Don't allow
yeah,
your buckets to leak. As you
yeah,
fill the
yeah,
bucket, becoming the water tank, becoming the larger tank, stop any leaky buckets, right? So this I call as the
yeah,
retention piece. And I think there are two very, very large dynamics, two very different dynamics. So from a top, and especially because we have a lot more to go, a lot in terms of our GT style of a business, the landscape, understand. And again, my gratefulness is we are in a place where we are able to go into every household, every store that consumes Desh ka chai and Desh ka namak,
amazing. Yeah,
right? Which is
yeah,
Tata Tea and Tata Salt.
yeah,
Now, that's a very, very large
yeah. It's a
opportunity
huge
that the
leverage.
brand
Yeah,
has. Yeah, it's a huge
yeah,
leverage.
yeah,
So, as we do that, it
yeah,
becomes very, very important that we start actually bringing in a lot of consumers from some of the traditional pieces of media. And we use a lot of the traditional pieces of media from there, being
sure.
very, very clear on communication. A lot of our digital work, right? A lot of our digital work is on retention and all of those pieces. That's where, in fact, a lot of our
Nice.
digital pieces start firing. The other part where a lot of our digital also comes in is within the categories where we look at young adults. And when we look at young adults, that's where really a lot of focus in terms of how we look at digital, how do we approach them. It could be on WhatsApp, it could be on Facebook, it could be on Insta, it could be on YouTube, it could be on the Reels. Recently, I was in Indore and I was with a taxi driver, right? And Champion was on his phone. I got into the car. I said, "What are you watching?" Right? He was on Instagram Reels, right? He was on Instagram Reels. I said, can
Yeah.
I see your
Wow.
Reels? And if you see,
Yeah.
it's just like basic, funny, just
Yeah.
mindless videos, right?
Yeah.
Mindless
Yeah.
videos. Now, he has a disposable income, right? So if
Yeah.
I have to target
Yeah.
him, and imagine, right? I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I'm not in the car when you're on a market visit, you're in, out, in,
Yeah.
out. But the guy's
Yeah.
found his time to do the Reels,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it becomes
Yeah.
very important for us as a brand to be able to be there. He
To
is
be able
not
to
going
be
to
there.
be
Yeah.
able to, yeah, to be able to be there. And how do you
So he's
get
not
be
going home and
relevant?
watching TV.
He's not going home and watching TV, right?
Yeah.
So many consumption occasion. Now the challenge
Yeah.
there is the what is going to stick in his memory, right? So
Yeah.
much of
Yeah.
information overload.
That, and
Uh,
then how do you measure that? How do you measure the impact of what you're doing? Is it working? And
Absolutely,
I mean, that's where our
absolutely.
jobs then come in.
Yeah. So that's where I don't. I'm not a as much as impressions are important.
Yeah.
I think getting strong, relevant creatives and content, right,
Yes.
is very, 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 very key.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As much as we could say, what is our content strategy? What is our content
Yeah.
strategy?
Yeah.
Right. It all needs to tie itself beautifully because think of that same
Yeah.
person, right? I'll just use the same
Yeah.
guy, right? As he's flipping through so many reels, right? Just one ad ain't going to do it. And I think that's a
Yeah.
mistake a lot of
Yeah.
people do, right? हाँ वो
Yeah.
टीवी का ad बना दिया उसका just वो we'll just change the frame,
But that
we'll
won't
change
work.
everything and
Yeah.
start. Never won't
Yeah.
work. Won't
Yeah.
work.
It won't work. Yeah. It won't work.
Right. So,
Absolutely.
so, so, so that's how we look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so do get into it quite a bit, but
Yeah.
leave the smarter folks in my team to really drive it. And in
Yeah.
fact, so Rasika, who's the co-founder of Soulfull, she heads the marketing.
Yeah.
So I know the
Yeah.
baby is in good hands.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I mean, you've definitely thought through the mental models very, very clearly, Prashant. Give me a sense on, I mean, what advice would you have? Right, you're an entrepreneur at heart, right? And so and I'm also asking from a context that the honeymoon with the funding game is over, right? And I mean, a lot of people I know in the game are going through hard times right now, right? So say about 12 months back or 18 months back, where it was very, very clear that if you have an idea, you're stupid that you're sitting on it, right? To
Yeah.
today, when you talk to folks and they're like, I don't know, right? I don't know. So what would your advice be to entrepreneurs and to entrepreneurs in the food business?
Interesting, deep question. I will be honest. I'll just tell you what's worked for me, right?
Yeah,
And I think every entrepreneurial journey is a story of its own, right?
yeah,
What's worked for me? Brilliant family, right? I had a brilliant family who backed me to the hilt. Great co-founders who even today back me to the hilt. A strong team which we have built with care, and we have been genuine. We have been soulful. We have never been sinful. Right? And when I say that, I say it with every single element. I think what's important is to ensure that these three things are there. Right? And the reason I say is the classic, right? You have a great idea. करना है नहीं करना है करना है नहीं करना है. Then you get into opportunity cost. What's my opportunity loss, boss? Keep all that aside. Do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? And now I'll sound like a broken tape recorder. Don't do it for the money. Never do it for the money.
yeah,
If you do it for the
yeah,
money, game over. Game over.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And that's why I said because there has to be a reason.
yeah,
कीड़ा क्यों आया है? Why?
yeah,
What is
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Where is
Otherwise,
that?
it's not sustainable. Yeah, you can't sustain it.
It's not sustainable. And and
Yeah,
and
it
the
takes
fire
so
here,
much.
the the
Yeah,
fire here has to be self-igniting. So every time
yeah,
you think of it, boom. It has to be like
yeah.
100 kilowatts has just flown through you. Right? So I think that becomes
Amazing.
important.
Yeah,
And because then that fire is there, you I love the poster, a friend of mine gave me when I quit my job. He says the old school poster, red and white background man, choose a job you
yeah,
love and you'll never have to work a
yeah,
day in your life, right?
yeah,
You have to be
yeah,
in that frame, right? I
yeah,
mean, be it on a
yeah,
holiday, be it
yeah,
on anything, the brain is operating, right? The brain is
yeah,
operating.
yeah, yeah.
The second is be ruthless about making tough decisions. And when I say it's very easy to try to please all, and I'll go with a very, very famous saying that, Narayan Murthy once says, as a good manager, you don't need to, and he said it from a manager, I take it from entrepreneurship as well. You don't need to be the most loved. You don't need to be the most loved. And I think this is a big
Yeah,
mistake
you
that I see
cannot be. I
people
mean,
making.
you're not here to sell ice creams.
Yeah. But as long as
Yeah,
somebody can ask you, and you say,
yeah,
if that person had to put yourself in your shoes, would you do the same thing? And if that answer is yes,
yeah,
you've taken the right decision, right? So
yeah,
I'm not saying you have to make decisions to hurt people, but don't make decisions to be loved. Very small difference, but it's a large business decision, right?
yeah,
And so the minute you wear that hat, right, then you
yeah,
start getting into being a very, very focused person. Yeah, some people will say, oh, to bahut, cut and right hai, and all of that. But at the same time, you're staying focused, right? Because
yeah,
it's very easy to move left and right.
yeah,
And once you are clear about the purpose, you'll have
yeah,
people on your cap table, on your table, off your table, wanting to be on your table, wanting to be off your table. You will have all of that, but be very, very
yeah,
clear of why are you here, why did you start the business, what is
yeah,
your idea all about,
yeah,
right? And I think if
yeah,
you just stay focused to that, I don't think it's just about
yeah,
food, it's about other stuff.
yeah,
So, for example, today, right, somebody would ask me, Abhi, so what are you going to do next? Right?
yeah,
For me, this journey has just begun. I want to get millets into a lot more homes. I want to
yeah.
be a part of the revival of these grains. If I can play a
Yeah, it's a
part
huge
in that
purpose. Yeah,
at
yeah, it's a huge
60, I
purpose.
will
Yeah,
feel happy,
yeah,
right? I'm not saying I'm
yes,
going to do this for
yeah,
30 years, right? But I think it's
yeah,
very important to stay committed to that piece, to see it in the right place. To me, when I know I'll be super happy is when I'm about to pop, this immortal human
yeah,
being still exists,
yeah,
right? And Tata
yeah,
Soulfull still
yeah,
existing, to me, is going to
yeah,
be a very important piece.
yeah. Amazing.
So hopefully that
Uh,
gives you a
Yeah,
perspective.
fantastic, Prashant. Yeah, fantastic. And almost my last question, right? I mean, work-life balance. Is there any, and how do you navigate? I know you're into sports and stuff like that. So how do you navigate work-life, health, all of that aspect? Because see, I mean, we realize it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. I mean, everything. I mean, you're building a culture, organization,
Right.
entrepreneurship. It's a. So
So
how
let
do you
me give you a
navigate that?
fun
What's your point
fact.
of view?
Let me give you a fun fact, Dheeraj. So the first day of commercial production of Soulful, my first daughter was born.
Oh,
Same day,
amazing.
right?
Wow, wow, wow.
So it's very easy for me to know that date, right? And I just keep track of her age, right? It's an
Yeah,
interesting one.
yeah.
At the initial stages, I think the line is very, very murky, right? At the
Yes,
initial
yeah.
stages, the line is very murky. If I can then further add, one of my co-founders also happens to be my wife, right?
Wow,
So,
amazing. Yeah.
right, so which makes it, which
Even more
adds to a
difficult.
layer,
Yeah.
but yeah, it makes it. And I'm only coming from the work-life balance part. And I think what
Yes.
then happens. So initial stage, I think work-life balance is a very, very tough one. As the brand goes, and I go back to again, sorry, very simple thing. It's an immortal human being. So at 1 year of age of your startup, think of that startup as a 1 year old child. उतना discipline नहीं होगा, right?
Ah,
Show some
correct.
love, show some care.
Yeah,
As that
yeah,
becomes 4, 5, 7,
yeah.
8,
More
थोड़ा
structured.
discipline
Yeah,
रखना, right? Get
yeah,
a little bit there, get a little bit there.
yeah, yeah,
Don't get it boring. Don't get it boring,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there is that thing. So as it ages, I think it gets a little bit better. And then it starts becoming very important of saying when you're doing it, be all in. When you're not there, right, be out. So I think that if you look at it from that immortal human being, and I think it then becomes and makes it easier to happen. I will also, so I remind myself for a very, very simple thing, right? So, which was a quote from Mark Zuckerberg. And so he says, life is about choices.
Yeah.
You have work, you have family, you have personal, and you have social. So, four things, right? If you think you can do all four, consider yourself wrong. Pick two or three. You have to give up one. For each, that's a choice.
Yeah.
Obviously, the startup kiya to work can't go out, right? So bad luck. Now, out of these three, pick two.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think we got that, Prashant. I mean, such a
Yeah,
fantastic conversation, and we've reached that point in the podcast where we turn the mic around, right? So I've been asking you questions nonstop, and it just helps that so many mental models are so well thought through in your brain, Prashant. It's been a fantastic conversation. Just love the conversation. But it's your
thank.
chance to grill me back.
I love that. I love that. But thanks, Dheeraj. I think what I enjoy. I think some of these conversations also personally as well is it also helps. Hopefully, one is also get your mind as well thinking. Everything to me is a learning opportunity. So this is a great one, and hopefully would help and can help, and the listeners to your show as well. So likewise.
Yeah,
So let's move to what I didn't expect. So this is an interesting one, and I'm told it's like a rapid fire round. That's uh,
yeah,
that's that's
whichever way you
that's what
like it.
I'm that's what I'm told.
Yeah,
Yes. So we can do it as simple questions. So
yeah,
what's your
yeah, yeah.
favorite snack?
Favorite snack. So I'm on this whole health plan for last 1 year, right? So I love these ragi crispy dosas. So they're very tasty and at the same time they don't do any harm. So at my home we have all these pre whatever batter of multiple of these ragi, jawar, and some mixed with spinach and so on and so forth. But I'm loving that, right? That's one. Second, I'm also loving chia seeds pudding. And I do it myself. So I get almond milk, I make it, I fix it myself, and I'm loving that. So two of those.
Nice, nice. Dheeraj, you're married?
I'm married and we have two kids. Yeah.
Nice, nice. What do your kids absolutely hate?
What do they hate? Any
When you
any
buy,
sense of
when you buy, when you buy, when you buy from a store. Obviously, we'll stay
from
core to food and
on
FMCG if you
food.
will. You don't have to name the
Yeah,
brand, obviously, Dheeraj.
yeah. I think they hate any kind of control, right? Or any kind of we trying to map our choices or behavior on them. I think it's just fundamental sense of rebellion, right? So uh, it's about them having their choice through. It's as conceptual as that. Then it doesn't matter, uh, you know. Yeah,
Nice, nice. I completely, buy that. And it's interesting, just side, is to see. So we have always said pester power in India is not there. Very, very high in the Western world. Right? I
yeah,
want to actually see at what point that inflection point will change. So, which
yeah,
which obviously will then change your work and my work and
yeah, yeah.
everybody's.
Completely,
Right?
completely. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
healthy food versus delicious food. You think that's a choice to be made?
No, delicious. I mean, the reason I told you that I love the ragi dosa or the chia seed pudding, they are absolutely yummy, right? I mean, I feel like I'm having kheer, right? Without any sugar. I mean, it has to be delicious for it to be healthy in my mind. I mean, because it's not
But
sustainable otherwise. I mean, I think, and we were at some friends yesterday and we were discussing that food is one of the biggest joys in the Indian culture. I mean, how can you not have food? I mean, food is for celebration, food is for worship, food is when somebody dies. I mean, food is so integral, right? You cannot take away the deliciousness from it.
nice, nice. And then do you think I mean, what people use internally and what people know of externally, the taste be, health be, is it an oxymoron or is it, uh, or you're a great advertising guy. What's your take? Have you come up with a better line, if you will?
Yeah, I think when people say it like that, I don't think anybody trusts because you've broken the two things down in A plus B, right? Human mind and especially the Indian mind doesn't navigate food like A plus B. It navigates food in a wholesome sense, right? If you look at even our thali, right, it's wholesome joy. There are textures, there are tastes, everything flows into everything else, and you make it in one mouth and you eat. right? So the moment you begin to break down the idea of food in India into A plus B, you've lost me, right?
Hmm.
And therefore, I mean, one of my biggest cases is Ashirwad, right? When we named that atta Ashirwad, the whole idea was that in India, it's the mother who's the gatekeeper. I mean, I use the idea of semi-permeable membrane, right? I mean, she will allow the right influences in. She will say, okay, computer will come to the house. Burger is okay in snack. But dinner has to be roti on dining table, everybody together, right? And there was the Ashirwad, Maka Ashirwad is what it is. Now, in the idea of Ashirwad, there's everything. There's health, there is taste, there's Vatsalya, there is Sanskar, everything. So you have to find constructs which are culturally holistic and not turn it into a mathematical binary.
Absolutely. No, very, very nicely said. Very nicely said. One of the best new launches you might have seen in the last maybe post-COVID era. Post-COVID era. During COVID, we saw a lot of vitamin days, boosting, immunity boosting, and all that. Post all that era. Anything that really like, wow,
Uh,
regardless of scale.
Hard. I think a lot of the EV launches are looking good to
Food,
me.
sorry, food.
In food specifically, uh, I mean, hard doesn't come to my mind
So
right
that's
now.
inspiration for
Hard.
entrepreneurs.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I mean, you tell me it's all the old stuff which is coming to mind. We, in fact, launched Oreo Red Velvet, in tie with Stranger Things Netflix. I think that's one of the, maybe it's because it's close to me. I mean, we work on that category. That comes to my
Yeah,
mind. But otherwise, I
nice.
would say I agree with you. It's a huge blue ocean.
I love that poster. I still remember the design. I was in the market, and if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Oreo, and then there was a slice, like a proper slice of a cake,
Yeah.
like a proper red velvet cake. It was a poster that
Yes.
stuck in my head. And I think what this is
Yeah.
2, 3 years at least, Dheeraj, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
darn good
Yeah.
poster, right? And I'm
Yeah.
just saying this
Yeah.
as not from FMCG food,
Yeah.
and that too
Yeah.
poster of all things, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know there was billboards, there was all of that, but I remember that
Yeah.
poster. So
Yeah.
whoever did it in your team, please tell them it was a very, very good job
Thank
done.
you. Yeah. In fact, I did a huge study. At some point, I used to manage the business for McDonald's, and I did a huge study on the food, cultural food, visual anthropology, right? And look at the idea of food in India. It's when you shoot it, right? In a Western format, it's all very clinical and clean. In India, it has to flow. I mean, you go to any chaat wala, right? It is visual overload. It has to be sensory overload. If you're eating, it's not flowing from here, not coming from here. There's no joy in it, right? And therefore, when you're
Right.
doing photography for food in India, right, it's a little messy, a little overflowing, a sense of abundance. You have to code all of that. India is not a sanitized, clinical, it's not that market.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nice. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Dheeraj. I mean, that's all the questions I had.
Yeah,
Uh, but lovely and really enjoyed the conversation, Dheeraj.
yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, Prashant. Wish you all the very best. Wish you a lot of luck and success. I'm sure you will get that. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Cheers. Cheers. Look forward to staying in
Cheers.
touch,
Cheers.
Dheeraj.
Have a great
Yeah.
day.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.